What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 274 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about The Light Brigade by Peter Tomasi and Peter Snejbjerg. If you'll remember, like over a month ago, whenever I reviewed The Mighty, which also had work by Tomasi and Snejbjerg, I hinted that I was going to be talking about another book by these guys. I thought it would be much sooner, but then I decided to go ahead and do another month of indie reviews, and since this is from Vertigo, I decided I was going to have to wait on this a little bit. This is like a 6 or 7 issue miniseries. It very much kind of reminds me of Hellboy a little bit, and it didn't remind me of Hellboy the last time I read it, but since I've reread it this time, I had reread a lot of the other Hellboy stuff much more recently, and this does kind of have a Hellboy vibe to it, but it's just different enough that it doesn't feel like it's straight up copying Mignola and his Hellboy universe. The similarities are, this is set during World War II. You've got a lot of World War II stuff in the backstory of the Hellboy universe. Some of the stories are set in World War II or pre-World War II, like with Lobster Johnson, but you've got a lot of Nazis coming back decades later to try and combat Hellboy and take over the world. And then you've also got supernatural, paranormal, somewhat religious iconography at place both here and in Hellboy. Now, the difference is this book focuses more on the human side of things, whereas Hellboy focuses on a demon child who is maybe the chosen one for the good guys or maybe the chosen one for the bad guys. This, you are focusing on human beings who are in the middle of really 2 wars. They are in World War II, and then they get pulled into a much bigger war that they weren't aware of at the beginning of the book. And specifically, you have one character who is going through a dilemma, a crisis of faith, if you will, and that is really the crux of the story. All the rest of the stuff, the battles that we get to see in World War II, the evil angel who is pretending to be a Nazi, and then the other angel who is helping our group of Allied soldiers, that's all just dressing. It's icing on the cake, if you will. The main thrust of the story, if you will, is our main character who has recently lost his wife, and it's kind of a battle to see if he will regain his faith. In a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me of the M. Night Shyamalan movie Signs, which I actually like that movie. I know some people crap on it, but it very much reminds me of Mel Gibson's character in Signs, how he used to be a preacher and he lost his faith, kind of lost his way, and then the movie is him trying to get back on that path, or slowly getting back on that path. This kind of reminds me of that, but if you don't like Signs, don't let my comparison to that movie put you off of this book. I think this is a darn good book. I like it quite a bit. It's got some really great artwork. I mentioned this whenever I talked about The Mighty, but Snejbjerg has really great art. It's kind of reminds me of Chris Samnee, who also worked on The Mighty. His style is very similar, cartoony, but not so much so that it feels tonally out of place with the somewhat adult material here. I would almost say this doesn't have to be a Vertigo book, that this could have just been a normal book from like Image Comics or something. With Vertigo, generally I think of that sub part of DC Comics as being for exclusively adult material, like lots of drugs, lots of adult language, full frontal nudity, that sort of thing. This doesn't really have a lot of that, but I think the themes here might be a little over the head of a younger reader. You would want to give this to a very intuitive, very bright child who is able to process the kinds of stuff that our main character is going through, where he's lost his faith and then he's on his way to getting it back, maybe. But you would want to give this to someone who is not necessarily easily sensitive, I guess you could say. So in that way, I can kind of see why this was done by Vertigo. But I really like this book. If you like Signs and the Hellboy stuff, this is very similar to that kind of story. So I would highly recommend The Light Brigade. So be sure to check out that book. And if you like this video, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.